Welcome. My name is Diane Skiba, and I have the honor today of interviewing Dr. Lorenzi. This is part of a project that the International Medical Informatics Association Nursing Informatics Group is doing called Nursing Informatics Development, Implementation, and Evaluation over 5 decades, personal accounts and experiences from international experts. Welcome, Nancy. How are you?
I am good. It's a nice day in Nashville, Tennessee.
Great. Well, good. We're going to start with having you describe your journey into the field of nursing informatics, into the field of informatics, I should say.
So yeah, I was thinking about that because I'm one of the dinosaurs. When I started, there wasn't an informatics program. So the National Library of Medicine was offering programs for people to learn how to be directors of medical libraries, which turned out to be a precursor of what they're now doing for biomedical informatics training programs. So I went to Case Western Reserve, and they had a combination of medical library and documentation center. The documentation center was a fabulous place, and I'm not even, I will say it, but we have to pretend after that no one heard it. There were punch cards that we used that went through machines that nobody would know that existed. So that was my journey. And libraries were one of the first major groups to really get into technological documentation. People still make fun of the library card, but those were gone so soon when the technology came in. So I came into this world without the official, what is now the training, but we did have the documentation center at Case Western. So that is how I got into it. It was through libraries, and that's how things then migrated. And I'll wait for your next question before I keep rambling.
Well, from one dinosaur to another, I started in statistics.
Okay.
So similar thing, there was no informatics.
There was no informatics, and they don't believe it. They think it's been here forever.
That's right.
Yes.
Now, I know that right now you're in an academic position, but have you been involved in other positions in the field of informatics?
The answer is my position at Vanderbilt, and I officially retired, and now I'm retired.
Mm-hmm.
But my position, I'm still connected to Vanderbilt. So I've got programs either on the schedule or in person there every day this week, except today. So when I came to Vanderbilt, it was interesting. My role was not only in the faculty, but working with Bill Stead. It was to remove, and this is truly what the words he said, remove chunks of paper from the outpatient clinics. When I came from the University of Cincinnati, and clinics meant a different thing at Cincinnati than at Vanderbilt. So I first had to find out what it was. And then I had to figure out a process. So coming out of, with my background being more of a sociological, social psych type background, I used a process with finding people that were key opinion leaders, gatekeepers of information, highly respected clinicians, and not techie docs, because I didn't want anybody that was connected with technology. I wanted those folks to say, how do they want to practice medicine in 4 years? So we came up with an idea, and then I got the medical people with what I call the technology crew, the techie docs and the informatics people, and we designed a system. And then we had those special people start looking at it, and pretty soon there were 75, there were 150, there were 300 people using it. And I said to Dario, who was the designer, who was the programmer for the system, what does it do? And he said, well, it pulls a panel of patients together. So we called it Star Panel, that I named. Now, if you were at Vanderbilt, they'd go, wow, you named that? Because we were doing billions before Epic came in. So that was in the operational side of things as I was still teaching classes on the academic side. So those are my two things coming together. And I used what I was doing on the operational side to bring students into that picture.
Yeah. And you were in a great environment because there was so much interaction between the healthcare institution as well as the academic institution, which I think really fosters a lot of innovation and things.
Yep. And with Randy Miller being in charge of the academic side and Bill Stead being in charge of the operational side, those were two giants in the field. So when you get down to who was helping you, it would be those two.
Yeah.
Let me see. I did write some notes, and I think, okay, I'll just keep going.
Well, and you just mentioned, so I'm assuming that those two might have inspired you or mentored you into the field. Were there others?
Oh yeah, well, Marion Ball, as I said, got me into writing books. Now I have 6 books in that series. And so it started with, and this goes back to when you're going to ask me the question about what do I focus on. And this was the very first book that came out like in 1995. And there's process and technology, and in the middle is peopleware. So software, hardware, and peopleware. And that's what my focus has been on, is the people side of the technology. So this was from 1995. And then the first title was Organizational Aspects of Health Informatics. We became smarter for the next book to call it Managing Technological Change. But it was basically, it's the people process. And I know you're going to have another question, but one of the issues that I've always had trouble with is everybody talks about the importance of people in the technology area, but when it comes down to it, it's technology, 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 and the people process get pushed into a corner till it comes back to bite them. And so anyhow, I'll save my other comments for that. I did bring props today.
Have you inspired some people with all the innovative work that you've done?
I'd like to think so. I've had, for nursing, Kathy Ivory came out of the nursing informatics program at the School of Nursing, and Betsy Weiner was her major person, and I was on her committee to go through not only the people side, but basically also the sociological side, because I would bring in some of basically the theories in sociology and say, where does this fit in? And now she is at Vanderbilt back in after she left and came back, and she's in the school. She's not in the School of Nursing, but she's in the hospital, and she's really in charge of a lot of research projects. And she was very active at IMIA for the certification for non-MDs. And so she's got a brilliant career ahead of her. And then for my students that really are coming out of the biomedical side, it is so thrilling to see the students get into ACME. And so this year, the one former student who was a student when he was sophomore, junior in college, junior, senior in college, and still didn't know what he wanted to do. And I was selling informatics. And I sent him one day, I called the head of trauma. I said, I have this brilliant young man, but he's still lost about what he wants to do. And he goes, I said, I just want you to do some dramatic things. I'd like to send him up there. Well, I sent him to trauma. They put him in scrubs. They took him to surgery. And when he came back, he had to tell me how informatics could help the nurses and the doctors. And this year he was in ACME. And I was so excited.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Always a nice indicator of achievement.
Yes.
I
I said, I'm so proud of you. I'm not competing with your mother, but I'm definitely proud of you. So anyhow, that was a nice thing.
That's
and then
great.
Lori Novak, who has an anthropology PhD, is doing a lot of work, and she just won an award for one of her papers in the Diana Forsyth area. So she has been my, when she came here, she was my postdoc, and now she's on the faculty with an associate professor. So I have some inspirations and have other students that are still connecting and asking questions and all kinds of things.
Well, you bring a unique perspective to it, so I can see why people would gravitate towards your guidance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What would you say is your most rewarding experience in this discipline?
I love working with the students, and I actually still see those who were former students, and yeah, I really like that. So one of the things that I didn't know I did want to talk about was that I've had an opportunity when it comes to nursing informatics. Where is my opportunity? And that is because I had leadership roles. So for some reason, I was lucky enough to be elected president of the Medical Library Association way back in the 1980s. And then I was active with the International Medical Informatics and chair of the working groups. And from there became president of IMIA from 2004 to 2007. And so from there, I was doing a strategic plan, and nursing informatics to me is really critical. I see nurses as the front line of informatics. And so that was one of the things that I could do in the IMIA world, is continue to push where that front line was. And then I became chairman of the board of IMIA. And also in IMIA, one time when Charlie Safran was chair of the board, there were two groups, one that represented IMIA, one that represented HIMSS, that wanted to come together. And some IMIA people were not wanting that. And so Charlie called and he said, if there's anybody that can negotiate between those two groups in this political process that I'm in, it's you. And so we had 2 or 3 meetings, and I gave some suggestions. And now it's an official organization that's probably been there for over 10 years. So it's just pushing. And then on Vanderbilt side, our Epic is now installed for 5 years. But working with the nursing informatics group, we needed somebody to be a representative as a change manager for every single unit. When it was in the hospitals, at the outpatient area, it was the nurses. There were also respiratory therapy and pharmacy, et cetera. So we had a whole year, or actually about 8 or 9 months of programs that we did that was change management for this. And they were our front line of really the installation of Epic, that we went with a giant big bang, and it was very successful.
That's wonderful.
They still miss Star Panel, but that was, and it was nurses. That's where I'm thinking. And even now I'm retired, I have a meeting this week with the nursing informatics group, because they're having some issues that they want to just discuss. And so this is a prelude to me meeting with them in January to go through like an on-site training program. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it's part of my commitment of giving back.
Yeah. I think as we talk to most of our honorary members, they're all continuing to give, even though they're retired. They're still actively engaged in the field and helping to really bring other people along into the field. What would you say was some of your biggest challenges you had to face?
Yeah, it always comes down to that people process side. It's such a squishy, I call it squishy. The technology is there and you know what to do with it, or you can figure out how to make it work, but you're dealing with people and you're dealing with how are they going to interact. And so it's just some of the things that I've always been dealing with. I always call myself a bridge person between the physicians, the nurses, the people that are going to use the technology, and the technology people, and just to try and get them to come together and understand each other. And that's still a problem today for other, I'm not in the middle of that, but it is still an issue that comes up of respect and listening to the other side to say, you know, if you could just do this, it would make it so much easier for the lives of, it's 5,000 nurses that we have at Vanderbilt. So why are you making them trudge through this swamp to do something? And so anyhow.
I agree. People is always the issue. And it's a challenge, and it's really hard for people to make a change.
Yeah.
From a faculty perspective and working with faculty, I remember I got good advice from an associate dean way back in the early 80s because I wanted to offer a course. And she said, they're never going to go with it unless you get the naysayers on board. So she said, you got a couple of options. One, run a conference, and if they see people coming, they'll say, oh, hot topic. And two, she goes, really sit down with some of those people who you know do not want to change and show them how the computer can help them in their work.
Good advice.
My students and I typed in 752 references into a database.
Oh my goodness.
Please, a faculty member who then became this ardent supporter of, yes, we need to teach nurses more about technology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had those kinds of experiences where you try to figure out, okay, how am I going to reach those people? Like you said, I love the idea of you saying you're a bridge, because that's what is needed.
And that's actually, I still am a bridge. Even though I am retired, next week, our chief nursing officer, our chief medical officer, and our chief experience officer is coming over to my house for wine and appetizers. Now, why are they doing this? Because for years, I was using them as strategy. And so I said one day, I'll provide wine and appetizers if you could come to my house. And when they started doing this, we did it 3 or 4 times a year. And when you get the chief nursing officer, the chief medical, and the chief experience, you can actually make a lot of progress by working out strategy that they can all go and sell in their respective areas. And then so you've got like tentacles that are out there. So I have a lot of those. I also did some bad things, like when a student had a professor that was not working out, how to dislodge them from that professor in a way not to lose political chips or respectability or any other thing. And so I've had a few of those, that 2 in particular, that took some time to just kind of get them dislodged, but everybody ended up happy.
Mm-hmm.
And students don't know that. They just want to quit. It doesn't work like that. Anyhow, I don't know how you're going to write this up, Diane, because I'm sort of all over the place.
No, you're not. You're giving some great advice on how the future generation can really begin to tackle some of these issues that are still with us. And so I'd like to ask for a final question. What advice do you have for this next generation of informatics nurses?
I think the next generation of informatics nurses are all nurses. They're not just the few that are anointed as informatics. Every single one of them need to know what that data means and what is coming out. So what I'm thinking is that the people that are in the informatics area, they're not solely contained. They've got to go out and like distribute this. So we can't run hospitals in patient care without data. And informatics now is is it data science? Is it informatics? Who knows what it is? But basically, it's together. And so I think nurses are still on that front line. I was in the hospital and I saw the physicians for like, except when I was out and they were doing something on me that I didn't know. I mean, I knew what they were doing, but I was not awake. All the people I saw were nurses, and they're looking at the data and they're dealing with patients. And so to me, it's those who are in the informatics area have got to realize that they are a connector to those nurses that are on that front line.
Great.
Sorry, I talk with my
Great
hand.
advice. Well, you've given some real gems for, the next generation in terms of looking at the people issues, in terms of really looking at how you strategize, how do you make use of your resources to sort of move agendas forward, as well as recognizing it's not just for informatics people. All nurses need to know this, and they need to bring them in to the process.
Yes, and I do believe that nurses are that front line. They're the ones, when you're in hospitals, they're the ones that you're seeing. They run the place. And if they don't know what's happening with that patient, the patient's in trouble, the hospital's in trouble. And basically, they're the front line. They are the front line.
Well, this has been wonderful to chat with you, and it's been exciting to hear your views and your journey in informatics. Thank you so much.
Diane, thank you. And thank you for all you're doing to keep the group together. This is really great.
But we want to make sure that people know we've been around and we've got some advice.
Dinosaurs can still growl. Yes.
That's right. Thank you so
Take
much.
care. Have a happy holiday season.
You too.
All right. I'll see you.
Yes.
Bye.